Do you think the challenges in some of the ecologies of researchers are based on that reality that we all have our own world and wonders, questions, and we're constantly trying to find our place in something bigger than ourselves?
Yeah.
A network, if you like, a web of inquiries.
Kind of, but you always think of the story that you're telling as the main story. We're human. So yeah, I think yes, I really like working with people. I like working with other researchers when I work. And part of the reason is that I like telling a more complete or bigger or weirder story than I could tell on my own, because my brain will only act the way, my brain has its own way of doing things. So my brain has its own sort of semi-controlled way of doing science. And that means, much like with this diatom train space I was telling you, with my way of doing things, I'm only going to light up a certain proportion of that at a certain angle, right? And if I'm very smart and very open-minded, I can maybe see a slightly less tiny proportion of it at a slightly less tiny angle. But if you can find people that you can work with who actually are looking at things from a very different viewpoint than you, so we're sort of coming at the same interest, way different approaches, that's when you can start to see these big, wild, weird pictures. Nature is so much weirder than anything I think we can come up with in our individual brains. So I think there's that. And I also, people are just really bad at listening, right? So if you think about it, when you go around a room and everyone has to introduce themselves, no one's listening to anyone else introduce themselves. Everyone is thinking about how they're going to introduce themselves, the protagonist in the room. Everyone else is clearly, a supporting character in the room. So we do that. And I think the magic in science comes with when you strike the right balance between listening intently. So just having the curiosity and to some degree self-control to let somebody else be the protagonist, right? And having judgment about when it's useful to let your brain do that thing that it wants to do, which is say, yes, but how does this fit into my story where I'm the protagonist and my ideas are the important, and I find the magic happens when you hit that sweet spot. So not just listen to somebody else sort of and with the sort of intense focus, but listening to someone else with slightly more diffuse focus, if that makes any sense. But I think it's tricky because it's really hard to not just, as soon as someone starts talking, think, yeah, but what does this tell me about what I'm interested in? Instead of just trying to understand what they're interested in.
Yep. There is the other personality that seeks to be sucked into somebody else's world, and you're not a follower.
I struggle with understanding that personality. As a kid, I did cause a lot of damage to houses by, I was convinced there were secret worlds, and I would come up with elaborate theories about how to get into them that sometimes involved, pulling beds out of walls and inserting a sibling into that space and then closing it again. So definitely sucked into imaginary worlds, but not usually sucked into other people's ideas. And I think that's fun in a collaboration because you want to be super interested in the other person's idea. You want to be super interested in the other side, but you kind of have to hold your own end, or you don't get the benefit, or you don't get the fun of that extra headspace.
Do you think it's a question of maintaining your identity? Is it more of an identity thing? Your grounding, who you are, what your purpose is.
I suppose you could put it that way. That's good. I hadn't really thought about it that way. Yeah, it's maintaining your own interest and not losing confidence that your interest is actually interesting and worthwhile, even when you notice another interest that it could be that you're like, oh, this is equally interesting and worthwhile, perhaps more interesting and worthwhile. So perhaps having enough grounding to identify differences, identify something that's different versus better or worse. So it's just, well, this expands my worldview, or this expands what I can do. I think, especially since things always seem shinier when you can't see the problems with them. Often when someone else is talking about their work, it almost seems much more perfect than your work. Because of course you're not there for the messy bits usually.
It seems to me very shiny what you've described on this marvellous recognition of the collaboration. Oh, we're actually all, in 2 days or something.
Yeah, I mean, but there's just so many conversations that lead up to that, and so many conversations that don't go anywhere, right? So I think you have a lot of interesting conversations where what you get out of it is the interesting conversation, and it goes somewhere, and then it goes into your history in your head, but it never leads to anything. Like the number of people who are like, oh yeah, we should work together on blah, and the vast majority of the time you don't. And so I'm always trying to figure out what it is that have made my collaborations that have been really awesome, and what have made the ones that fall flat, or even just not take off. So I think scientists are people, right? So there's got to be just some, you hit it off with them, or you don't.
Could it be, I'm just building on previous conversations we've had about the state of the world and the desperate need to inspire more young people to do science. Could it be that some of these collaborations work because you all recognise the importance of the work itself? Mm-hmm. You know, I was talking just previously about triaging. Like there are some things that need to be done now, and some things that are not. You know, they could be, I don't know, some kind of really academic study. You could recognise them as nothing we urgently need to know right now. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's so obvious you just haven't mentioned it right now as I'm recording.
I think that sits in a different part of my brain, at least, where I think I can say, well, some of this is important and useful, some of it I just want to know. But I think the collaborations that I fight for are the ones where there's a real synergy, where it's the two of you can do more than double what each of you can do, and there's no way to do the project without that other person. So it's not just splitting the work, it's that it would be impossible to do this without both of you. It's just a non-overlapping like skills and background, and sometimes personality types, just to get it done. So it's that excitement of getting to do something that you know you can't do, right? So that's sort of but I really do think it's that like excitement of being able to step so far outside what you could do, even if you had the same amount of money and time and people, just because you have this other brain, this other personality, this other way of doing things. And, you end up with some interesting conversations as well, which is